Dob on my neighbor scheme to be set up in northern beaches? I was informed by a friend that local authorities are thinking of setting up a Dob on my neighbor scheme similar to that in London, where empty properties for more than 6 months are reported. The rental crisis and the fact there are so many empty properties in the northern beaches this time of year makes me think this makes sense. I don't think there is any penalties at this point, but I think the local authorities want to understand how many properties are simply empty and not in use. Is this a good idea? Should these owners either sell up or let their holiday homes? What do you think? Edit. Here is the link to the London scheme for those interested. A lot, if not most of it, is land banking and should be eliminated as much as possible. There's over 150,000 empty homes in Sydney. Housing is a necessity and its abuse as a financial instrument is causing massive societal costs and problems. Won't somebody please think of the rich people? Sad face. I don't think there's a political authority in the country that isn't bought and paid for by the property industry. Don't hold out hope that some council hotline is going to undo the train wreck of Australian property. If the owners are not really there, they're not really your neighbor. Dob on a neighbor seems like an unreliable way to do it. Water usage or power usage data? Just as a personal moral choice, any scheme that encourages me to dob my neighbors into the government is a hell no. This is all ridiculous. Rent out a holiday house, short-term stays or long-term, and not be able to use it for holidays. Become a landlord when you don't want to be one? Can't see that working out. If vacancy issues can be addressed by occupation periodically, then people will rotate their family members to stay in the holiday house. I would. I had a holiday shack and renting was a pain in the ass. I preferred it be empty and just my immediate family use. Average Aussie. My god, Australia has really brigaded this sub. This is a dumb idea. All this will do is upset a lot of people, voters, who will turf out whichever party is dumb enough to try and put this proposal into practice. The real solution is to increase supply. I'm from the beaches and am trying to get back to the NS Beaches area. I start my new job on Monday. I currently live 3 hours away and have nowhere for me and my dog to go. I've been hunting for 6 weeks, which I naively thought was enough time. I like to think I have a fairly healthy budget for a single income, and I've been searching multiple times a day. There's nothing around and it's soul-crushing. Are you sure it's not being run by the squat database? I heard they were organizing something like that purely to put more empty houses on their database. I think they're even developing an app. Imagine your multi-million-dollar home ending up on that list. Once squatters are in, it's very hard to get them out, especially if you're in another country. 100 This should be a thing. My mum's been at a property for nearly 2 years now. Both houses on either side of hers have been empty the entire time. Both Asian owners have shown up a couple times to check the mail. One has a pool cleaner show up once a month. Houses are both completely unfurnished. Both have said they like to keep it empty in case they need to move in there or family comes from overseas. Both houses probably between 2.5 million. Ridiculous. Hold on. Are we considering telling the government if a house is unoccupied? To be honest, if I owned a home, I don't have to rent it out. Why should that be punished? Dobbing someone in for doing that is not only childish and petty, but shifts the focus away from the actual problem. If you remove the incentive for someone doing that, you'll have less people doing it. That's what needs to be done. This would only band-aid the problem and not very well. This sub has been taken over by our Australia yesterday, a post calling for more income tax now dobbing people in that are not home. WTF, this is becoming ridiculous. I'm not going to start screaming communism or socialism, but FFS, let's cut this crap from a financial sub. Yeah, lots of poor people can afford rent in the northern beaches. That will solve the problem. I really don't support any scheme where we start reporting people to the authorities. They gonna force people to rent out their vacant property now? In Vancouver it's tied to energy use consumption. The province instituted a 30 vacancy tax to those properties where nobody lives. Sid should implement something similar. Are we really turning into a nation of dobbers? I'm a poor guy, no house or houses. But should there really be a rule about what we do? If someone wants to own 10 houses but live in one, why is that a crime? What people do with their own property should be private. I really hope someone dobbs in a vacant house so they rent it out, end up with loud tenants, smiley face. If any of these vacancy taxes etc. come into play, people are just going to knock down houses and land bank as vacant blocks to avoid the tax BS. Dobbing on your neighbor is un-Australian. Why do people always suggest authoritarian craziness in this country? We live in Jeremy Bentham's wet dream of endless utilitarian nonsense. Forcing people to sell rent out their holiday homes? How would that solve anything? It'd be a bureaucratic nightmare of incomprehensible rules, each one more baffling than the last. We should also have a dobber renter for those who have spare bedrooms. It is outrageous that people have spare bedrooms during this rental crisis. By Allah, as if Australia wasn't bad enough, now civilians are being recruited as informants for the Stasi. How about a scheme where they start building enough homes and heavily limit immigration until they are built? I get your point, I really do, but I think the owners would find a way to factor in any fines right back to their renters, be they short or long term. I think it's a good idea. It's sad that there are people who are genuinely suffering hardship and don't have a stable home. However, I will not stand by and have any rights impinged or encroached upon by anyone. If I had multiple houses and I was inclined to keep them empty, well then that's my right. Rights are a slippery slope and I wouldn't trust the gov with the power to limit house purchases and force me to keep them occupied. What if it's a holiday home though? What purpose does the reporting serve? I would need to understand that before I could comment on whether or not it's a good idea. I don't know what penalty I'd be okay with, tbh. You can't force people to sell their property or make them rent it out or use it for community purposes or anything like that just cause they're not living in it. And if there's no penalty, this just sounds like a waste of time and resources. Dob on my neighbor. I can see this going off like a hot cake. Poor people dobbing in bourgeoisie. Australia, East Germany, socialist paradise. They don't need it. They know from meter reads and the like if there is nobody there. You would have to be one pathetic sop to be a part of this. The only way to improve the housing situation is to massively relax zoning laws and allow new builds to outpace population growth.